Martyrs, we're sending you back to the heavens! Hey guys, welcome to Mikhail Messenger. It's great to be with you guys, and we are just about out of time. Oh man, that's how I feel about today. Because I've been trying to get this video out to you all day long. And man, I had to get it out today. I know it's late, later than usual, but the hour is late, if you know what I mean. So I think it's fitting that we're out of time, even in this day, as I'm trying to get you this video just in time, if you know what I'm saying. Gotta get back in time. Guys, I hope you're having a great night out there. Thank you so much for joining me and staying up a little bit later with me tonight for a little late night exciting exploration of what the Lord is revealing here. And I want to give some special shout outs to Oriana. Boy, Oriana just did amazing research today for me. Really helped me out to find a lot of these things. And I also want to give a shout out to Carla at Ecru Symphony, who also gave me some pointers I'm going to share with you as well. So thank you so much for your help, and all of you who help support this channel so that I can continue to bring you these things. You know, I always start out like everybody else. Well, I really don't. But today I did. I thought, you know, I had this thing connected with Back to the Future that kind of hit me yesterday. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a video on that tomorrow. And it'll be like a 10-minute video. But I never do 10-minute videos. I always try. Well, I don't really always try, but lately I've been trying. But it never works out that way, because as soon as I start looking into it, oh man, there's just no end. No end. No end. The rabbit hole keeps going and going and going. And being me, I can't help but go down those rabbit holes and find lots of things that I want to share with you. And I quickly throw the 10-minute video out the window and go, nope, not this time. And not this time, guys. But hopefully it won't be as long. Well, it might be, but hopefully not. We'll see. We'll see how quickly we can get through this tonight. But man, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. You know, that's you're here for the fun as much as what the lesson, you know what I'm saying? And not as much lesson tonight, more exploration. We're going to be unpacking things, really interesting things, interesting connections to this week. And that's why the Lord told me several times. I asked him, do you really want me to do this tonight? I could do it tomorrow. He's like, no, you got to get it out tonight. So here we are, and I'm doing it tonight just as the Lord commanded. But guys, October is here, and if you haven't already seen my video that I did, well, the Lord's video, I'm just happy to present it, but called The Great Eighth Day. I encourage you to check that out, because I go over a lot of stuff in there that I'm not going to go over in this video, but I am going to talk about the month that we are in and the time that we are in, because that is of the essence. And I'll give some shout outs real quick to Jeannie. Thanks so much for moderating tonight for us, and Wild West and Oriana. Thank you so much, guys, for helping to take care of the chat. Be nice out there in the chat, guys. I'm working hard over here for you, so be kind to one another. Thank you. And thanks, help our moderators out. I know sometimes it gets late. People get a little short-tempered and so forth because they're tired. So, guys, October. Did you know that October is really not the 10th month, but it's the 8th month? And, you know, that's fitting, because even in the Hebrew calendar, we're working our way to the 8th month. You know, Tishri, we're still technically in Tishri according to the Hebrew calendar as written. I know there's a lot of debate as to what month we're really in there, but October was originally the 8th month. Did you know that? The old Roman calendar started in March, and this is very important, very significant to tomorrow, and that's why I had to get this out today, because there's things happening tomorrow that may prevent me from ever getting this out again. So I really felt that that's why God wanted me to get it out to you tonight, because there's things happening tomorrow that could change the world. And we're going to talk about the connections with that tonight. But October is really the 8th month. So I want you to get that, okay? October is the 8th month, and that was the Roman calendar. And so it really represents 8. So when we talk about the great 8th day this month, we're as much talking about 10-8 as we're talking about 8-8. 88. You know where I'm going with that already, but there's a lot more to that than you may imagine. October comes from the Latin word octo, meaning 8. The old Roman calendar started in March, so October was the 8th month. And then we go to November, which is 9, and then December, which is 10. So keep that in mind as we travel here through our calendar, shall we? So, okay, here we are on the 3rd day of the 8th month. Now, what's interesting about this is today, as we talked about in the last video, there is a NUKE test going on, or at least drill type test going on over there in the land of the Ruskis. And that's what they've been doing today, preparing for the apocalypse, preparing for the great mushroom cloud in the sky. And they've been running drills and preparing for the marshal of the LAW and all those kinds of things today over there. And some things happening here as well. The Speaker of the House has been ousted, and people are talking about Mr. Trump. In fact, that was actually floated previously, and perhaps that was by design, as we're going to talk about a little bit here today. But tomorrow is the epic 4th of the month. Why is it epic, do you say? Well, what's interesting is, as we remember, as we talked about in the last video, the 8th day is the great 8th day. I'm talking about Simchat Torah and Shemini Atzeret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is really Shemini Atzeret. If you count this Sunday as the 2nd day of the Sukkot. It depends on what calendar you look at. Sometimes it lands on the 8th, actually. But we do know that the 8th technically starts on the 7th as well. So we've kind of got a double 8 going, maybe even a triple 8, you could say, between October 8, the Hebrew 8, and then 8/8, if you want to think of it that way. But Simchat Torah, as I've talked before, is a perfect time for the two witnesses to show up and begin their ministry for 1,260 days that would then end at Passover, when they would be put to sleep for a time, instigated by the beast, and then raised again 3.5 days later, just like Jesus was 3.5 days later after Passover. So that would really be a perfect timing for that. And then, of course, on the 14th, we have this epic eclipse that is doomed to happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So what's happening tomorrow on the 4th? Well, everybody, of course, is by now aware of this event that is happening, but there's more. So this is happening tomorrow on the 4th. Now, there's lots of theories as to what will take place when this occurs at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is what they're saying. Now, if I were you, I'd probably be ready for it to maybe happen early. Who knows? They might catch you off guard or something. But 2:20 is what they're saying for 30 minutes. Now, is it going to be 30 minutes of nonstop sound? Well, different reports say no, it'll just be a minute somewhere within those 30 minutes. But in any case, that's what they're planning to do. But an interesting thing they say here in this particular article, it says here, for those, let me make this just a little bit bigger for you so you can read that a little better. It says, for those who are triggered by loud noises, turning your phone, TV, or radio off is advised. Found interesting choice of words. Triggered, like what's a trigger? Trigger is something when you kind of set something off, or in terms of launching projectiles and things like that can involve triggers and loud noises. So I thought that was a little bit interesting way to put it. It's kind of like, I'm triggered. That's the word today. The buzzword is triggered. Oh, that triggers me. I'm triggered. Whoa, trigger. So, you're kind of wondering what's the hidden meaning of that. But they're basically telling you to turn it off. So you're like, okay, so then what's the point of the whole thing if you're just going to turn it off? Anyway, of course, you may want to turn it off. Maybe even put it in a little cage of the fare of the day, or aluminum foil or something of that nature, because who knows what may happen. There have been a lot of movies depicting signals coming through phones and things, and people having strange reactions. Some are even claiming, because of what has been dropped from the clouds and the skies, that everybody has a little bit of that special pixie dust inside of them that could react to to these sounds. So you think, well, I didn't get the poison. It's like, well, maybe you did, and you just don't know it. And there is this thing called shed of the ing that is supposedly happening between people. So, something to consider there. But what else is happening tomorrow? Well, Mr. Francis is publishing his second Laudato Si. If you remember Laudato Si, and by the way, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up out there, I forgot to ask for that. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay, or an ear. You can put an ear out there, just make sure with a thumb that lets me know it sounds good. But a Laudato Si will be published tomorrow, October 4th, from what I understand, to be published on the 4th of October. So that's intriguing because that is a 7-year plan. Now, the Laudato Si has often been compared. Oh, thank you, Oriana, Jeannie, Visionary Vet, appreciate that. The Laudato Si, thanks, Wild West. The Laudato Si is a 7-year plan, similar to what has been signed, thanks DDT22, that was been signed over there in the U to the N. Was that last week that took place? Boy, times go by so fast. Maybe it's been 2 weeks now. But in any case, we know that will be confirmed then by the Chuckster in December. But in the meantime, we've got this gentleman who's got his own 7-year plan, but it's not really his own 7-year plan. They're all the same, and they're all working together. So that's intriguing. So that's coming out tomorrow. Now, he says it will be released during the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I may be mistaken about this, yeah, I think I'm mistaken about that. I was just thinking, St. Francis of Assisi, is that the same one who did the Jesu to the Its? But I think that was Ignatius Loyola. I might be confusing those two, but there might be a connection there. In any case, it's going to be the feast tomorrow of Mr. Francis. And of course, that's who I think he takes his name after, this popester, because this impopester, yeah, that's a pretty good one, impopster. He's an impopster because his real name is Jorge Bergoglio. Mario, I believe, is the middle name. But in any case, this is happening tomorrow. Okay, so Mr. Francis is making this happen. Now, what else is happening tomorrow within the Catholic world is what's called the synod process. The synod process. And what is the synod process, you ask? Now, this begins, as you see here, on the 4th, as well, the 4th. So a lot of things happening in the Catholic realm. And I'm going to point out another reason I believe that made connection. So I'm just giving you a little calendar, and then we'll get into BTTF, if you will, and some other things. But anyway, so that's happening tomorrow. What is this synod? A synod is an assembly of the clergy, sometimes also the laity in a diocese or other division of a particular church. A Presbyterian ecclesiastical court above the presbyteries is subject to the General Assembly. So basically, in the Catholic Church, it's an assembly of bishops representing the Catholic episcopate, having the task of helping the Pope in the governing of the universal church by rendering their counsel. So they're basically like the mafia, that's basically what we're talking about. But they're basically the the group that is La Familia. Is the group that is pushing forth the agenda. The leaders. It's kind of like the U to the N. I guess you could think of it that way. We have the U to the N where they get together and basically trample over all of our rights and our constitutions and so forth, and make these covenants and things that we didn't approve of, and they basically do the same thing here. It's kind of the same idea. So they're starting on the 4th, which is tomorrow. Now, what's interesting about this is it's as antichrist as it gets. So this is basically Satan's, the synagogue of Satan, one of them anyway. Now, what's interesting is they call it synodality is the way, people of the way. Now, in the Bible, they call the people of the way. But this is way, way, way far away from the way of Jesus Christ. They have nothing in common. In fact, I just want to show you some of the things that they practice in these meetings and what they're pushing for. This is their AGENDAs that they're putting forth. So one is that they want to have women leading in the church, which God says in the Bible the men are supposed to lead the church. So basically, they're doing everything we can do to just go against the Bible. They want people of the G, A to the Y persuasion to get a public blessing for their unions, which of course goes against Scripture as well. And that they want to teach, the latest of what I hear they want to teach is, and the same gender unions, they want that to be okay, which of course it isn't in the Bible as well. But they also want to include children in that as well. And that's the latest one, because it's kind of like once it was criminal for them to do everything they're doing, so now they just want to make it legal, so this no longer criminal, right? It's applauded instead of rejected. So that's what this group is all about doing, and they're getting together tomorrow to push forward that modus operandus. Now, this is also the month of guardian angels, according to the Catholic Church, which is intriguing, because we could sure use some of those right now. Bring on the guardian angels. Can they guard us from this madness and from this wickedness that's taking over the world? That would be really nice. But that's this month. Of course, we know this month ends with the demons taking over at the Halloween time period and doing their nastiest things at that time, followed by All Saints Day, quote unquote, on November 1st. So also, oh wait, I kind of left one out there on October 4th. Oh no, I guess I'll get to that in a second. October 7th, okay, that's the next event. Now, you could argue that the 8th day begins on that day. Now, once you know, C to the E to the R to the N will officially open. They'll open the science gateway. The gateway. They're going to open the gateway, right? This is what they've been trying to do for the longest time. Now, they're doing it on the 7th. Isn't that appropriate timing when we get up to 8/8, as we shall see? Now, this is supposedly like a visitor center, like a place where kids can come and learn how to talk to demons and things like that. So, by going through different dimensions and so forth, which is what they're striving to do. As you can see here, there's some children, curious children playing around. Now, boy, I really got to move this up for you, huh? You're missing a lot of this. Okay. So this is kind of leading us to Back to the Future, by the way. So we're going to get to that in a second. But as you know, C, E to the R to the N, they're trying to open a portal and go to other dimensions and open, let other creatures in, which could all tie in with the biblical opening of the abyss. And there's a lot of tie-in with that. I've done other videos on that on this channel. Just look up C to the E to the R to the N, and you will find those. But here you see that kind of tunnel, that kind of portal that they're trying to get to. Back to the photons. Da, 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 da. So that's the idea there, but it ties into what we're also going to be talking about today. So that's happening on the 7th of this week. So it's a busy week, guys, a busy week. Now, also this eclipse that's coming up on the 14th, 7 days later after the opening of the portals or the gateway, is also said to possibly cause blackouts. Now, we've talked many times about the 3 days of darkness. Now, that is not a Catholic concept, although a lot of people contribute to Catholicism. The Catholic Church gets too much credit, guys. The Vatican and all that. They really didn't, they did some bad things, yes, but they didn't invent everything. In fact, the devil can't really invent anything. The 3 days of darkness is in the Bible. It's in Exodus 10, I believe, between 10 and 12. And it's the last plague before the firstborn child is taken in Exodus, before the Passover. So that's in the Bible. Wasn't invented by the Catholics, but who knows? Maybe they're pushing it really strongly or something. Maybe because of this. But they're predicting that there may be a blackout that occurs because they're running things on solar power over there, and so they're going to block the sun. So it may be an excuse for this solar eclipse to take out the GRID or some of the electrical properties, if you will. Okay, so let's talk about. There's a scripture in Daniel 7:25 that says, now what's interesting about Daniel 7:25, if I'm not mistaken, is that on the Enoch calendar, and I'm just going off memory here, but on the Enoch calendar, I believe the 14th actually falls on the 25th day of the 7th month. Just throwing that out there because everything's pushed back a little bit. I remember seeing that somewhere. So just kind of an interesting thing with Daniel 7:25. But it says of the devil, of the Antichrist, he says he will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. So there's a lot about time in this particular verse. And when we think about Back to the Future, it's all about time. Now, one more thing before we dive into Mr. Marty McFly. This is also what's happening tomorrow. Okay, so this is huge, guys. This is huge. And it ties into this whole thing of changing the times and the seasons, right? Of Daniel 7. The idea of changing the times and seasons. This is what the devil wants to do. So if he can stop everything tomorrow, which is what's going to happen, everything's going to stop for an hour, essentially. Half an hour they say, but it'll probably be maybe longer than that. Maybe for a long time, like days. We could go into 10 days of darkness. Who knows? But tomorrow, October 4th. Now, all this stuff is happening with the Catholic Church and the POPE, right? Well, tomorrow is the anniversary when Pope Gregory the 13th decreed that the 10 days following October 4th simply wouldn't exist. Whoa. Talk about changing the times and season. Back to the Future is all about that. We're going to get into that. It's all about time, and it's all about changing time. It's all about, well, I can just go back and, erase those days, or I can just move forward, and so forth. That's what happened back in 1582 with the popester of the Gregory. And he's the one who instituted the Gregorian calendar that we use today. Remember, we started this out talking about the Roman calendar is 8, and how then he moved to the Gregorian calendar, and it was the POPE who did that. Now the POPE tomorrow on the same day is going to be doing his Laudato Si to change the days and times, and the Synod's going to change all the times and the ways. They're going to change the ways of man, and then they're doing this epic test that will also perhaps change the times and the seasons as they take over those devices, and perhaps things may change from that point forward. So very intriguing that ties in as well. Another thought about this. Now this happened, so it was from October 4th to October 15th. Now, when he first instituted this, it was not accepted by everybody. It was kind of slowly took over the Gregorian calendar. But when it eventually, I believe, finished, and you can go back and look at the video I did on this some time ago, it landed on February 24th, I believe, or 13 days difference, because the Ruskies are still on. They're still on the other calendar. They're still going by the past calendar. So they're 13 days off from us, and somehow the date that they invaded and began this whole farce that we're living through right now also ties in with this. So you might want to go check that out as well. So that's happening tomorrow, guys. Changing the times and the dates and the seasons. So, Back to the Future. Okay, that's enough. So basically, Back to the Future is a retelling, as it says here, of the battle between Zeus and Kronos. Kronos being the god of time, being represented by the clock tower. Now, what time did the clock tower stop? That's your quiz, okay? What time did the clock tower stop? I'm going to share with you in a minute, but I'll give you a chance to think about that. But if you think about it, Zeus was trying to be God. It's like Satan trying to be God. He's trying to control the times and the seasons. And so what we have in Back to the Future is really man trying to be God. Now, I love the movie Back to the Future. As a kid, it was my favorite, probably one of my favorite movies for sure. It's a great movie. In some ways. There's other ways. If you really look about it, like, okay, the mom and the son, maybe it's not so great. And then, of course, you have these deeper aspects as well that we might say, well, it's not so big. But, on the surface, it just seems kind of like a fun time travel movie, But it gets a little deeper than that, as we shall see. So, as this movie begins, we open up with Marty walking into the Professor Brown, into his laboratory or his little garage, wherever he's living there. And it's full of clocks. It's all about time. All about time. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the opening of Pee-wee's Herman for some reason. That movie, has all these kind of contraptions going on. But that's what's going on with time. And then Marty, of course, famously plays the guitar with a huge speaker and goes flying back. But in the beginning, he comes in and the credits are still rolling. And it's all clocks. Clocks, time. It's all about changing time because it's time travel, right? So they're opening it right with that. And that's all you see in the beginning is just the clocks. Now, what's interesting about this is the clocks are set at 7:53. Why is that significant? Because 7:53, when you break it down by single reduction and add up all the numbers, equals 88. And 88 is the number that we're going to see shining throughout not just this movie, but some others as well, as we're going to talk about. So 88. So 8/8. October 8th, for example, would be 8/8. The great eighth day. So very intriguing that is what is predominant in this movie. Now, if you look closely here, it's a little hard to see, and they purposely X it out, maybe so you don't notice it, but maybe also to say X marks the spot, or this is when things end, this is when things change. And if you look at that clock, unlike the one that's 7:53, this one that's on the coffee maker is actually set at 8:08. 8:08. So that's kind of interesting as well. So you get 88 a different way there. Times change. See, times change. Okay. Now, Oriana pointed this out, and I was kind of amazed by this, but all you just do is search the word watches. Okay. If you just search the word watches, I'll show you this here. So you just search watches. So you're not putting any time in. You just search in the word watches. That's it. Okay. You can do it on images. Okay. Just search watches. And the majority of the watches that pop up will say 10:08. Now, first one says 10:09. Now, maybe they're saying, well, that's the minute we take over. See, at 10:08, things change. Now we're in charge. Of course, that would be from Apple, of all people. But most of these, 10:08, they're all pointing to 10:08. They're different companies, different places. Now, why would every watch, for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, why would every watch point to 10:08, 10:08, 10:08? I mean, that in itself is pretty remarkable, would you not say? I mean, did everybody all the watchmakers get together and say, what is the time of times? Is it 10:08? 8:8? What kind of con of the spear of the Issy is this? Watchmakers are even in on it. I mean, that is pretty spellbinding. Now you would think, well, maybe it just looks good that way. Well, yeah, I guess, but there's a lot of ways it could look good, I suppose. Is it because, does it have a May of the Soul connection with the, for example, the symbol that they have when they have the square and the and the circle maker, as I call it. Their symbol. Is it half of their symbol, the bottom of the pyramid, perhaps? I don't know, but very interesting that all the watchmakers are in on this. Okay, now when we start off this movie, after he blows himself up with the speaker, he then is late for school because, of course, it's all about time. See, he's late. He's late for school, so he runs out the door. What time is it? Oh yeah, all these clocks are set. They're set so many minutes behind. I forget how many minutes he says. If anybody can think of it, put it in the comments how many minutes behind Doc Brown set the clocks there. But he's talking to Doc. He says, "What? I'm late for school." And he hangs up the phone, jumps on his skateboard, grabs hold of a truck, and takes off. So he gets over there. He's late for school, gets in trouble, of course. And I think this may be after school. This happens. But the woman comes up to him and says, "Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower!" And she's shaking it. And she basically introduces this whole thing about the clock tower having stopped at 10:04, which is tomorrow. That's why I had to get this out today. So 10:04, right? That's when the clock tower stops, 10:04. Now, what's also interesting about 10:04, it's also 1/4, which is the 14th, which is when we have that eclipse. So it could be pointing to that day, which is 10 days later. 10 days later, see? So look behind her. If you look up above her, you'll see a shop there. Might be a little challenging to read. I'll show you a couple other shots of it. But what does that shop say? What does it have on it? It has the 3rd and then you see an eye, and it's inside of a triangle or pira of the mid, right? Interesting. Why, of all things, would they choose to put that on a shop that they're going to put in the movie, right? I mean, they designed this. It's not like they went to... Either way, it would be like... if you went and found a shop that had that would be crazy in and of itself. But to put this on a shop purposely, why? Why would you put this unless, of course, they're involved? So, what does she say? Save the clock tower! And she gives him this flyer, and it has on it the number, I guess I gave it away already, 10:04. That's when the clock tower stopped. 10:04. Okay? So I stole my thunder, as I usually do. But anyway, Save the Clock Tower stops at 10:04. Kind of an odd time to pick. Why 10:04? And a little different than the 10:08. You know, is it kind of 4 minutes before the 10:08 countdown? Is it relating to the 14, the 1/4 of the 14th day of the month when this solar eclipse happens? Who knows? But kind of an interesting choice that they would choose 10:04 of all times for this clock to stop, which is tomorrow. May I continue to emphasize? All right, so let's keep going here. So Mahdi goes home, and I always thought it was a little odd, but he's got these like estate, lion estate stones on the side of the road that just sort of look out of place. Like, I never drive down a street like that and see these stones sticking. Like, that's something you would see maybe with gates going into a community or something, but this is just like a regular suburban road, subdivision, and they're kind of sticking out awkwardly into the road, like almost like it would block cars. It doesn't seem like two cars would even fit very well going through that. It's just seems like they totally just stuck it there on the road. Like, does not belong there at all. But it says Lion Estates. Now, what does this look like? Well, it's like a gateway he's going through, this Lion's Gate, so to speak, that he's going through here. And it's emphasized a few times throughout the movie to kind of imply, that we remember where he lived. Here he goes back to his home, his home area, and that's all that's there, right? It's just those stones. And of course, here we see in the third movie, he's in his poncho and so forth, and there they are again. Kind of an odd choice. Like, they could have just filmed him going down the street to his house, but they intentionally put these stones there with lions on it to imply this Lion's Gateway that he is going through. Well, you're probably familiar with the Lion's Gate already, but that is something that occurs on 8/8, August 8th, the Lion's Gate portal. And we've talked before on this channel about that as well. Here, of course, you see the lion, and he's got the third, eye with the triangle there, just like in the movie. And we see the Lion's Gates, right? So that wasn't by accident. Of course, that wasn't even there. You could just tell that doesn't even belong there on that street, but that they purposely put that there. So this Lion's Gate portal is something that opens up, occurs every year on 8/8, August 8th. So, okay, yeah. And so that's a date sometimes we look at and go, maybe there's something there, 88. There's connections with Christ with 88 and so forth. So we often look at that time as well. But could it be pointing to this 8/8, October 8, which is really 8/8? And so could it be a bit of a diversion, the Lion's Gateway then, when maybe we get the Heavenly Gateway that opens at this time? So the Lion's Gate is also the gateway that Jesus went through when he went to the cross. Well, that's significant because in a sense, that's his gateway to heaven, because he's going through that gate and going up to Golgotha, being crucified, and then he dies and goes to heaven, right? He dies and goes to be with the Lord. So that's his gateway. That's his crossing over, is the Lion's Gate. So could our gate be something similar to that Christ went through the Lion's Gate? Will we also go have our gateway open up to go and be with him? Now, as we progress through the movie, he then gets called by Doc Brown to come and meet him at the mall. And here's two different times he goes to the mall. The first time, you'll notice it says 116. Well, if you turn that over, of course, you get 911. And then the second time says 133. And of course, we know 33 has a lot of meanings. Jesus was 33 at the end of his ministry, but also we have 33 of the degrees of the May to the Son as well. So there could be a connection with that. Also, the first one is the twin pines. Second one is the lone pine, right? And that's what we have now. Following 9 to the 1 to the 1, there were twin pines that planes ran into and that fell down. And then they replaced that with a lone pine, right? So this is 1985, guys, 1985. So they planned these things long time in advance, long time. So, wow. I mean, what are the odds of that? And then they're kind of giving themselves credit, like now we're in control of the 3-3 club. So here is now. Oh, I forgot to put up there. I was going to show you the Libyans, the tear to the rur to the ists. Basically, Doc Brown, he gets an NUKE component called plu of the tone of the eum that he uses to make time travel happen. Okay. And so the people he gets it from, he promises to build them something, and he lies to them and just gives them a bunch of used pinball machine parts or something like that. So they're really upset. They come driving in their van and attempt to take him out, right, and destroy him. Now, what's interesting about that, this is just kind of coming to me as I'm sharing with you right now, but when they shoot him, he miraculously is revived. And we know, for example, the Antichrist will receive a head wound and then miraculously he'll come back. So just was thinking about that. But in any case, these guys come in. They are trying to take him out. And so what Doc Brown is trying to do is he wants to go back to specifically November 5th of 1955. And I forget exactly. I think, that was the day that he discovered time travel. That's what it was. So he wanted to go back in that day because he discovered time travel that day. And so that was an epic day for him. So he thought that's the perfect time to go back. And the first time you're going to go on a time machine is to go back to the time you discovered time travel, right? So the date he's leaving is October 26, 1985. And so, of course, there's a switcheroo that happens. Doc gets taken out. Then Marty jumps into the car, and he ends up being the one, of course, who goes back to 1955. Okay. Now, what's interesting about that, is this what I want to show you right now? Yeah. He wants to go back to November 5th, 1955. Now, we've talked about this before, but if we go from the time when they announced the abomination of desolation, one of them at least, that the poison, and you go 1335 days, it takes you to November 6th, the day following, kind of like that watch that says 1009. So, God says, blessed is he who waits for the 1335 days. So could there be a connection there to our escape and maybe when the devil takes over, so to speak? Now, the beast himself, he's going to have time times and half a time. So that's 3.5 years. But when the Christians are taken, then you're kind of left in a dark world. So it could just be the beginning of a dark world or beginning of tribulation. Now, this is the chemical that Doc Brown acquired. And what's interesting about this chemical is that it has an atomic weight of 238. Now, you can read it on the screen. Most of the stuff I spell, you can see it on the screen as well. But fortunately, that's what I have to do. So 238, and it has a half-life of 88 years. Do you see that? 88? Right. So you think that's by mistake? Okay. So 238. Now, Carla pointed something out, which I really appreciated. I'm going to share that with you here. But she's an NASA scientist. She's pretty advanced. So she understands lasers and light and all these things. So she was telling me about rainbows, and when I was talking to her about this, and she said, well, that's like a double rainbow. I'm like, it is? How is it? And she said, because in a double rainbow, the primary rainbow is 2 degrees, the secondary rainbow is 3 degrees wide, and then the dark band is 8 degrees wide. So you get 238, just like in this case. So The double rainbow is interesting because we know that relates to the Chuckster, but also relates to the times of Noah, the days of Noah, the flood that comes, and so forth. So I thought, wow, okay, that's really intriguing. So kind of a connection there as well. So thank you, Carla, for that. And so let us continue. Let us continue. So this chemical it gets, is obviously an NUKE chemical. And what's interesting about 1955 and 1985 is this was a time of major testing by the Ruskies, okay? The Soviets, who we now call the Ruskies because they've broken up, they broke up the band. So 1955 and 1985 were these tests happening, and that's the time period that we're in, right? The movie came out in 1985. That's when Marty goes back in time, October 26th of 1985, and he goes back to 1955. So there's a tie-in with the whole of the NUKE aspect here, beyond just the chemical that's used to make it all happen. Of course, the U.S. was doing their own share of testing during that time as well, and including here in Nevada, and that was also happening in 1955. So there's a tie-in to that, as we shall see a little bit more in the movie also, okay? So, in fact, there's even a song, and I think about it, when I think of the soundtrack of Back to the Future, there's a song called, I believe it's called Time, B-O-M-B Town. Yeah, I think so. I used to listen to that soundtrack when I was a kid, and I think there's a song on there. You can check it out right now, post it up here. But I think it's Time, B-O-M-B Town. We got to get out of this Time, B-O-M-B Town. And when you think of time, B-O-M-Bs too, that relates to time, right? So they're timed, like there's a countdown. And so this all ties in with time, T-minus 10 and counting, right? So what's also interesting is this talks about how, from 1955 to 1989, the average number of NUKE tests conducted every year was 55. I can't drive 55. So 55, okay? So there's that 55 again. Because November 5th, 1955, that's 3 5s. It's kind of like grace, 3 5s. That's kind of interesting as well. And then, of course, 11 is chaos. And then also 1955 is when they began this treaty to disarm every one of these NUKEs. And it was completed in 1963, but it began in 1955. So there's a lot of connection there with what's happening now. Because what did they just do today in the Ruski land? They had a drill for NUKE action, right? And so it's all coming together. All the things pointing there are happening now as well. Now, this is what's called the flux capacitor. Okay, now this is what makes time travel, according to Doc Brown. This was in the DeLorean, that's the time machine that they drove. And if I back this off a little bit, you can actually see an 88 at the bottom here. Because when this baby hits 88, you're going to see some serious stuff. So 88 miles per hour, right? That's how fast the time machine has to go to make time travel possible, to get to the other time period. 8-8, okay? 8-8. So that is the time where everything changes. That's the time where we go from this land to another land, where we're changed. We talk about being changed in the twinkling of an eye. That's what happens with the time machine, right? It's the twinkling of an eye where the lightning happens and the flux capacitor is fluxing and everything happens in the twinkle of an eye. And he's changed and transformed into another time, into another place at 88 miles per hour. 8-8, the Lion's Gate. Now, it hit me, and I'm not going to get too graphic about this, but it hit me that I'm like, well, that looks a lot like a birth canal. I'll just put it that way. Looks a lot like a birth canal, where everything kind of meets together in the middle, and then you're reborn into a new life. Well, that's what's going to happen to us. We're going to be reborn, a new beginning, and we're going to change from this body and be born into our new bodies. So I thought it was kind of intriguing that it's had kind of a similar shape there, and that also when conception happened, there's a light that happens, a flash, a twinkling of an eye that happens at conception. And I've talked about that in other videos also. And if you want to know about more of these videos, just contact me in the after video chat and I can direct you to where those are if you can't find them. So finally he gets in the time machine and takes off. Gotta get back in time. And he takes off and the license plate comes off and it says out of time and it spins around. Out of time, right? So what they're really saying, because it doesn't say get back in time or future time, it says out of time. Like you have no more time. There's no more time left. So it really has a symbolism of the end. You know, they talk a lot, there's a lot of references to NUKE. The idea of the end of the explosions, the time BOMB town and things like that. This idea that it's all going to end and we're out of time. And so that's the message that you get as he leaves. And there's fire surrounding him as well, which is kind of like an added effect, but that you're left in the flames and we're out of time, like everything's going up in flames. So that's kind of intriguing also. So here we are at the end of the first movie. And I'm not going to go through all the movies, but I'm just kind of taking chronologically through it roughly. And there's a lot more I could cover, guys. There's a lot in there, man. I was finding so much stuff today. I was like, oh boy. And I got a lot more to share with you yet beyond Back to the Future. So I encourage you, just search it up and you may find some other interesting things, because there really are a lot of interesting things connected with it. Especially the whole thing with the Zeus and Pluto and the man from Pluto. They originally were called Back to the Future the man from Pluto or spaceman from Pluto. It's like, why would you ever call it that? But because the whole thing connects with, Pluto and neum, right? The chemical that he uses. And but it also connects with this whole thing of time and chronos and trying to change time. And that's what the devil's trying to do. He wants to change time from the way that things are. So, of course, we have this whole drama where, lightning is going to strike this clock tower, and that's what's going to send Marty back to the future. And Doc climbs up there because the cable comes loose, so he has to climb up to the clock itself and get that baby back together in time before the lightning actually strikes. And, of course, it does strike. And, which, by the way, somebody put this out, too, which I thought was interesting. Just an image of Lone Pine Mile with 10:04, which is the time that the clock tower stops. So again, that's tomorrow, 10:04. So I thought that was very intriguing. Okay, so now here's Marty going back to the future, okay? And this is 1955, just so you know where we are, because I know there's a lot of time periods and it's very easy to get lost in Back to the Future, all the timelines. But this is 1955. He's driving straight down the road, and he's like, "But Doc, there's not enough road. I'm gonna run into that theater that's there." Now, ironically, didn't they think? He's like, "Yeah, but you won't run into the theater because you're gonna be in the future." It's like, "Yeah, but I'm gonna run into the future theater." So. But I guess he didn't really have a choice because he had to go where the lightning was, and that's at the clock tower. So didn't really have a choice on how much road he was going to have there to make that happen. But in any case, he goes towards this, and what's the name of the movie that's playing? It's if you can read this here, the ATOMIC Kid. See that there? So there's a lot of references in this movie that connect to NUKE. So the ATOMIC Kid. Okay, which kind of relates to Marty because he's the kid, from the future, and he's doing something. He used ATOMIC properties to get there, and now he's using the lightning to get back. But what's really interesting here, now check this out. This kind of rocked my socks. So you got some socks on? Put some socks on. You got to get your socks on because you're about to get them rocked. They're about to fly. Okay. Now, before I go there, though, look over to the left. That looks kind of like an eyeball looking at me there. You see that? Over there under the lamppost, to the left of the lamppost. What is that? Almost looks like an eye. Okay, so it says this, right? This is the movie that's playing in 1955 when he goes back to the future. But when he gets to the future, check out the movie. Well, actually, it's not a movie. Check out what's on this marquee. Oh, wait, actually, here's the movie before we leave that. So this is the movie. It was with Mickey Rooney, and that's the actual movie posters there that would have been in that theater. So kind of interesting choice. Again, they could have picked any movie from the 50s. They could have picked The Blob. They could have picked any movie Count Dracula or Frankenstein or something. But this is what they chose to pick. Why? What's the timing here? 8/8. 8/8. Is this going to happen on 8/8? Is that what they're telling us? This we should expect on 8/8? What are they pointing to here? Now look what happens when he gets back. This rocked my socks. So get your socks on. Jeannie, you got your socks. I see that. Very good. So watch this. Come on. Boom. Check it out. Do you see what that says? So he gets back to town. Gina, oh, you got a lot of socks, Gina. Very good. Very good, Gina. You got a whole sock drawer out. Okay. So look what's happening here. He leaves at the I got to choose my words here. At the lightning, let's just say the lightning pulse, okay, that relates to the ATOMBOMB. And then then when he gets to the other side, what do you see? The assembly of Christ. That's what's on the other side of that. So what is Christ going to do at the rapture? When he takes all his children, he's going to assemble them. It's going to be an assembly of Christ. You understand? He's going to assemble all of his saints together. That's what's going to happen. They often say when the fire goes down, we go up. Is that what's going to happen? Is that what happens simultaneously? So on one side, you've got the BOMB going off, and on the other side, you have the Christians being assembled. Wow, that kind of rocked my socks, man. When I thought about that, when he's going to the other side, and look on the side, it says salvation is free. You see that? You see that on the picture? It says salvation is free. Wow. And then Jesus, and it says assembly of Christ. Wow. Now, why? Why did they pick that? They could have put anything on that marquee. It could have been some rock band in town playing or something. It could be anything. What are they telling us here, guys? I mean, what is God telling us? Maybe, sometimes you go, man, how much did they plan and how much did God plan? Did they just say, oh, let's just put some church up there? Wow. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this? Too amazing. 8/8. You got the BOMB on the kid on one side being blown, and on the other side you have the everyone being assembled with Christ standing before him. Wow. That's sock worthy, I would say. That's sock worthy, don't you think? That one was pretty cool. That one blew me away. So wow. Now notice the name under there. It says Reverend John Crump. Remember that, because that's going to come up again too. I'm telling you guys, there's a lot here, and I'm just scratching the surface because I don't have time. Sometimes I get into these things, I'm like, man, to do this right, I should really spend like a couple weeks on it. I mean, there's so much here, but I don't have that kind of time. I got to get this out now, so I'm giving you what I got. And I know there's more to be dug, but who knows? We may not be here to dig it all out, so I had to get it out to you. So a couple more things on Back to the Future I want to share with you, and then we're going to dive into some other things here too. Some other movies and people and interesting things, and that also connect with Back to the Future. So we're not really done with Back to the Future. Back to the Future will stay with us, but I'm just bringing out the things in the movie first. So there's a point in this movie. Now this is in the second movie. Okay, this is in the second movie where he goes to the future. So he goes to 2015 from his future of 1985. So he goes 30 years into the future, and so at that time, there's an almanac that he buys, because he wants to try to get rich back in 1985, and use it as a get rich quick. Well, Biff gets a hold of it instead, and so he gets rich using it. But of course, it's ill-gotten gain, as the Bible says. Ill-gotten gain will not bring you reward in the end. So then, of course, Marty repents of his sinfulness and then goes to try to get it back from Biff so they can put an end to the madness. So he hides in the back of his car. Now he goes down this long tunnel. Now again, they could have done anything, but they chose to use this tunnel, and this tunnel also connects back to what we're talking about. What's happening on the 7th of this month? They're opening the gateway. And how do they do that? They go through these tunnels, right? The tunnels of the photons, the tunnels of going back to the future. You go through a tunnel of going through time, right? And this tunnel theme is really connected with what's going on here. Now, we think about when we go to heaven, there's a tunnel and we see a light at the end of the tunnel. So this tunnel, he goes in, and interesting, it's kind of like the flux capacitor because it's got 3 rows of lights. You got 2 lights on the side and 1 in the middle. You see that? So it's like the flux capacitor fluxing there in the tunnel. So he goes into this tunnel, and basically he ends up getting out of the car and onto his scooter board, whatever hoverboard, and now Biff is chasing him in the car. And which you think, how in the world does he not catch up to him? But I guess it's a 50s car, man. It doesn't speed up as quickly. But anyway, so he's running away from him on this hoverboard, and he's going to the end of the tunnel, the light, so to speak, at the end of the tunnel. And there is a light that sort of appears at the end of the tunnel. And guess what? He gets raptured. He gets taken away. And who's there at the end of the tunnel to save him right before the BOMB is about to hit him? The destruction is about to come upon him. He's saved by, of course, Doc in the DeLorean, who drops a line for him and lifts him and whisks him away. So there's sort of a rapture analogy there, being saved right before the trouble takes you out. So I thought that was cool too. Now this is the tunnel that they used in the movie. It doesn't look really anything like the movie, and they obviously added to it because that's a lot shorter in actual reality than I think it looks in the movie. So they obviously did something for the movie. But this is another tunnel called the Goddard Tunnel. Okay. Now we know there's the tunnels of the CE to the R to the N, and this is a tunnel. This is the longest underground tunnel, at least that we know about. And speaking of tunnels, I appreciate also Vicky's been sharing a lot of information over there, and that's like a whole nother subject that I want to get into. But there apparently are tunnels that go underneath all of the wall to the Marts and connect them. At least that's what's been said. And supposedly when all this goes down, they're going to use the wall to the MARTs as CAMPs to hold everybody in. And if you think about it, it kind of is pretty smart. Smart. It's kind of smart because you never see it coming. It's sitting right in your town. See, when they build these CAMPs, they got to build them like kind of pretty far away from people so people don't go, hey, what's that doing there? So they build it out in the cornfields or somewhere like that. But if you have an actual building that's already there that you can just recommission for a different purpose, that's ideal, and so it's right there. And supposedly they have these tunnels that they're building underneath to transport people and so forth. So you have this right there in your hometown, but it's masquerading as a store, right? And something you would never suspect. So this tunnel, famously, is the longest known, publicly anyway, tunnel. And it's right there near C to the E to the R to N. It's connected somehow with that. And they did this, famously, they did this psychotic satanic ceremony that went along with it that you may remember, where they were doing all kinds of weird rituals. One of them, as you see on the right, is like they show like 3 demonic spirits coming out of a portal, coming out of a tunnel. So they build these tunnels, and then they have this satanic ritual to celebrate. And they're sort of, going along with the C to the E to the R to the N. They're trying to break through to the other side. They're trying to break through the spiritual tunnel and let the demons out. So you see demons literally coming out of this tunnel in the screen, and it also looks like an eye. So, and there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. I mean, people dancing nude and all kinds of weird stuff that you can find online, and I'm not going to show you right now. But yeah, a lot of craziness was associated with that whole ceremony. So, so this idea of tunnels is a recurring theme. Now, I want to talk about another movie from the 80s, one that you might not know about as well. It was a little bit more of a cult classic, I would say. But believe it or not, it's kind of the same story as Back to the Future. In fact, you could argue that there was an AGENDA in making these two movies, that they were trying to get some messages out. This movie came out 1 year prior to Back to the Future, called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the, you guessed it, eighth dimension. Now, it came out on August 15th of 1984. Back to the Future came out in 1985. This came out on August 5th, 1984. Now, that's 7 days after 8/8, after Lionsgate. Okay, so 7 days later, and 1984 adds up to 22. 1985 adds up to 23, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right? 10, 8, carry the 1. Yeah, 23. So isn't that interesting? So now we're in 2023. We've been looking at 22 and 23. So there's sort of a connection there as well. So he goes to the 8th dimension. Now, what's interesting about this movie, there's some connections here with Back to the Future. First of all, he has a car that he uses for this, just like Marty McFly does. And it kind of does very similar things and is even designed in a very similar way. It has these kind of back chutes. This floating off the ground is kind of what happens later on in Back to the Future. Where we're going, we don't need roads, and then they get off the ground and they take off. And the goal of this car, see, look, it looks a lot like the DeLorean. Now, it's not a DeLorean, it's like a truck, but kind of the same design, right? He's got those back jets going on like that. And what do you notice? What you notice the number that they put on this car or on this truck, both on the side and on the hood? It's 88. 88. And you notice they do kind of a yin and yang with the colors there, the red and the white and the red and the white. So it's 88. So you've got 88 again. This is just 1 year before Marty McFly. So, and it looks a lot like the Back to the Future car. It's like if you had a Back to the Future truck, it's kind of what it would look like. Very similar. And they're doing very similar things. Marty McFly is trying to go back to the future. He's trying to go through time. This guy is trying to go through dimensions, just like C to the E to the R to the N. They're trying to go through other dimensions. So this isn't a gen of the duh going on here with these movies, right? One's trying to go through time the same way the other one's trying to go through dimensions. Okay, so this guy, Buckaroo, also even has a vanity license plate very similar to the Out of Time that says Rocket 88. Okay, Rocket 88, just like Out of Time. So wow, a lot of similarities there. And apparently they had the same producers that were on it, but that's not all, as we shall see. It also, the device that it used to get to the other dimension looks almost identical to the flux capacitor. And it does have the aluminum to the nutty flavor to it too, doesn't it? A little triangle or Pira of the mid, if you will. Wow. So what are the odds of this? So, maybe because the first movie kind of bombed, it wasn't like a big popular movie. Although it had a lot of famous people in it, including one in particular we're going to mention. But they're trying to get this message out. So they come back with Back to the Future to get it out yet again. But guess who's in this movie? You guessed it, Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd. Now, there's a lot about Christopher Lloyd I could go into as well. Apparently, the movies he's in, they all have this similar themes to them. They tie together in some way. It's almost like he's somehow involved in all this, or they cast him. He's like a Lucky Charm or something. I don't know. But even his name, Christopher has Christ in the name. And Lloyd, I think, means loyal or something. I forget. But also his name in Back to the Future is Dr. Emmett Lathrop Brown. And if you take Emmett and Lathrop, and they're like anagrams. Emmett, you can change it around to be time. And Lathrop, you can change around to be travel. So, but how about that? The fact that they're both in both of, he's in both of these movies and they come out 1 year back to back. What are the odds of that? Too crazy. Now, in the first movie, John Lithgow kind of plays the Doc Brown character in a way, like the crazy scientist. And then in the Buckaroo and Christopher Lloyd plays, I think he plays like an alien or something, masquerading as a human or something like that. And then in Back to the Future, he's the crazy scientist. So kind of intriguing there as well. Now, October 26th. What's interesting about this date is October is 8 and 2 plus 6 is 8. Okay? So really the day that Marty went back to the future was 8/8. Now, it's also 26. 26 is God's number, and Yahweh are both 26, both in English and in Hebrew gematria. And then there's this epic date that he goes back he goes to his future time. Now, why are they hovering around October and November? That's the other question. Because he goes to see his future self. And for whatever reason, he goes back on October 21st, I guess because that's the day, that's the day that Griff, who's now like the son of Biff, is now tempting Marty Jr. to do evil. And so that's the day he goes back. But why is it October again? They could have picked March. They could have picked another season, you know? Why October? What's this obsession with October? Is it because stuff is going to happen in October? It's because that's the time of the devil. The devil loves October. That's his favorite month. Boy, lot to think about there. Now, it's 2015. If you remember, Buckaroo came out on August 15th. So there's that 15 connection as well, which 1 and 5 is 6. Can maybe relate to 666. And then November 12th, 1955, I think is when they go. That's like a week. That's a week after he goes initially. So he goes November 5th, and it's like a week. He has like a week to before he goes back to the future. I think that's what it is. So I think that's why November 12th is in there, if I remember correctly. But you can let me know more about that. But kind of intriguing. November 12th is also intriguing because we talked about November 5th, November 6th. But November 10th is also another date that kind of flies in there. We know the end of November is going to be the Chuckster. By December 12th, he's going to sign, confirm that agreement, so to speak, of at the C to the O to the P, 2 to the 8. So what's also interesting about October 21st this year, and why Back to the Future is also appropriate to be talking about, because this month of this year, they're actually re-releasing the movie. What? Yeah. On October 21st, this month. So what's the date? The 3rd? So 17, 18 days from now, 666. That's interesting. 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. They will be re-releasing Back to the Future to celebrate the day that Marty went to the future to see his future self in 2015. Like, what? What are the odds of that? Now, I didn't know that. Yesterday, the only reason I did this video was because I saw 10-4. And I thought 10-4 was when the clock started at the clock tower. Oh, I got to do a video. That was it. That was the only reason I'm doing a video. And then I just started, exploring. And you know how God is. He just reveals thing after thing after thing after thing. I'm like, oh, wow. There's so much. So I had no idea that they were going to re-release Back to the Future this month. Great Scott! I see that, God Jesus. Great Scott! Hey, what happened to Machio? Oh, man. Great Scott! So, yeah, totally. So I had no idea that that October 21st of this month, just a couple weeks from now, they're going to re-release Back to the Future. With a special screening remastered version. Special screening remastered version from 1985. So I thought, wow, this is definitely a Back to the Future month. And I had no idea. So that's intriguing as well, would you not say? Now I thought about it, I'm like, why are they releasing it this year? Because wouldn't like 2 years from now be the 40th anniversary in 25? So why not wait 2 years and release it then? Why are they releasing it 23 years after the date of the movie? That's another question. 23 years after 1985, right? Am I right about that? So what we got? 95, 2005, 2015. That's 30 years. And then to this would be like, I guess 38 years. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, like 38 years to 40. So kind of weird timing even. Like, why? Why do they feel the need to do it now? May never get another chance. Okay. Well, I'm going to segue a little bit. I'm going to still talk about Back to the Future, but I'm going to segue into some other things that connect with Back to the Future and all of this. So 9 to the 1 to the 1, okay, you may already be aware of that one, also appears in the movie. It also appears in the second movie, if you remember when George McFly is upside down because it's not the same actor, so they put him upside down so you wouldn't really recognize it's not him. And I think they're talking in front of the TV screen or something, and we see the two towers behind them in that movie. So there's a connection here again with 9 to the 1 to the 1. And then you see the OWN, which is an anagram for the N to the W to the O. Because the T is kind of faded out, right? You can't really see that. And maybe they're implying that we own you now. We own you, McFly. And then also you have this torch on the side. Now this kind of relates. You notice the fire is on top of the, it looks kind of like a torch, like an Olympic torch, like how you would like the torch on the right side there. And that also relates to the whole Zeus Kronos connection where he had a torch. In fact, when Doc Brown runs down the middle of this after Marty goes back and he's like, yay, he's holding up his hand kind of like he's holding a torch. You can go watch it. Kind of in an odd way, like not a normal way that you would run, but he kind of puts his hand up like, kind of like, yeah, you did it. But it almost kind of looks like he's running down the middle of those two lines like you would in an Olympic thing or something with a torch in your hand. So kind of intriguing indeed. Now, that's not all. This is what they call the tribute in light. Now, if you remember, when that happened, after 9 to the 1 to the 1, they did a tribute in light following the attacks. And when they did that, it consisted of 88 searchlights. 88 searchlights arranged in 2 columns. So it was like 2 columns of light going up, and it was 88 lights that they used. Okay, what are the odds of that? Why 88? What's with the 8 and the 8, and you've got the 2 and the 2, so it's kind of like, does that mean it was 44 on each side? And there's a connection with Jesus again there. Why 88? And you've got the two lights going up, the 2 lines. Now 8 also is an infinity number. 8 is like eternity, so it relates to Christ as well, as we're going to see. But 8 is very intriguing. So 88 lights, that's what they used. So not only was it in the movie, but they even used that when they did the tributes in 2002 as a temporary commemoration before they put up the 1 pine tree, right? 2 pine trees to 1 pine tree, the Lone Pine Mall. Okay, now I'm segueing to another movie, because this is what happens. You go down rabbit holes, you find rabbits. And I actually found an actual rabbit. Pretty scary rabbit, actually. Now, I'm not recommending this movie in any way. It is a dark movie, as the name implies, and the picture implies. And it's not only dark in mood, it's dark, like literally dark, like visually, and it's like in the dark. And I think that may point to something as well. But I'm going to point out a couple things here about this, and it kind of relates to Marty as well. So now Marty McFly is alliteration, MM, Marty McFly. Donnie of the Darko is also DD, right? So it's kind of an alliteration thing going on there. And I wonder about that ABCD. That's the 4th letter. So twice, that would be 8. 4 plus 4. D plus D is 8. So that's also interesting. Now this movie is set in the year 1988. And there's a lot of 88 connections in this movie for whatever reason. Okay, so we're segueing here because it connects to 8 and 8, and apparently even connects some way to Marty McFly and time travel and so forth too, which I'll point out. Like I said, I didn't dig as deeply into this one because I mainly want to focus on Back to the Future, but I'm going to share a couple of things about it that were kind of intriguing to me. I hope you're enjoying this so far, and your socks are getting knocked. So like I said, scary movie. I'm not saying to go watch it, okay? So not endorsing it, but pay attention to the fact that there's a rabbit involved. Now, I also wanted to talk briefly about The Matrix, because if you remember in The Matrix, they talk about follow the white rabbit, and it goes back to Alice in Wonderland and the whole idea of the rabbit. Now, we are in the year of the rabbit right now, the year of the rabbit. So it's intriguing because this particular movie, as we'll see, came out on October 26th of 2001. Now, you may recognize that date. Do you recognize that date? Because if you don't, we just talked about it. So let me go back and show you if I can even find it. Where is that picture? Is it this one? There it is. October 26, 1985. What? Okay, so they could have picked any day to come out with this movie, and they come out with it on the same day that Marty McFly goes back to the past, goes back to 1955 on October 26th. So that's the day that this movie came out, was October 26th of 2001. Roughly a month after the 9 to the 1 to the 1 event also. Interesting. So that, what would that be? That'd be like 17 days, a month and 17 days, something like that. Intriguing. So why October 26th? Well, it relates to Marty McFly. It also relates to 8/8, because October is 8 and 2 plus 6 is 8. All right, let's keep going. Check this out. So the movie takes place in 1988. This is the movie. And Frank, who is the rabbit, the bunny, whatever you want to call him, the hare, tells Donnie, now pay attention, his name is Donnie, by the way, the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. And if you add these numbers, the sum is, you guessed it, survey says, 88. 88. So the world will end in 88. The world will end at 8/8. So it says it right there in the movie. Now, I'm not saying that movies tell the future, but there may be something to this, seeing as it's showing up quite a bit in these movies. Now we're in the third movie now with all this 88 business, and it has to go do with traveling through time or to other dimensions, or, you know, in this movie he's kind of like dealing with becoming another self, maybe, or I mean, you might be able to tie it in there somehow. He's kind of having kind of a mental breakdown or something of that nature. I don't know if I've ever actually watched the whole movie. I've seen clips of it, but you know, kind of intriguing. Okay, so but this is this. There's a scene, you can look it up, but the disgusting rabbit tells him that this is when the world's going to end, and it adds up to 88. So why you say? Now, as I was looking through things, I happened to come across this video called Donnie Darko Waltz in the Fourth Dimension, and look at the images it shows in the movie, or in the video. Eclipses. They're all eclipses, and not just any eclipse, but ring eclipses, which is exactly what we're going to have on 1/4. 10/4, 1/4. Because 10/4 is 1004, right? Tomorrow is 10/4, but also 10/4 is 1004. So you take out the zeros, because there's nothing there, it's 1/4. So interesting that this would be connected somehow with Donnie Darko. Now, the name is Darko, so it's dark, and like I said, the movie's dark, and it's like at nighttime. You know, I don't think there's an eclipse that happens in the movie. Maybe I'm wrong. But maybe they're in an eclipse, for all we know, the way it is so dark. You know, maybe that's the implication there. But I did find this kind of intriguing that I happened to come across this as I was looking. Now, when this movie came out, it was released 22 years and 3 days, or 223, before the beginning of the Year of the Rabbit. Okay? And you know they love to do these things by the numbers. So Donnie Darko was released on now this is 1/19/2001. The other one said October 26th. So what's going on here? I don't know what that means. 1/19. But didn't we just see that it was 10/26? And this is the first time I'm looking at this just like you. So I'm going, Now, this was in Los Angeles, but maybe it was released somewhere else on that date. Let me see. Let me try something here. 1/19/01. That's a big difference. 1/19 to 10/26. The film. Oh, the Sundance Festival. Ah, very cool. So they got it both ways, man. They got the 3/22 and they got the 8/8. Wow. So Sundance Festival was in January, and then they actually released it in the theaters on October 26th. Wow. Very cool. I'm glad I looked that up. So look at this. So it was actually 22 years, 3 days before the beginning of the Year of the Rabbit. Okay. And Donald is his real name. hint, hint of what else we're going to talk about here. Our main character, and he used to take these. He took these on July 24th of 1988. Okay, now 223. Well, that might look familiar because it's the reverse of. Man, it seems like we keep coming back to these guys. 3 to the 2 to the 2. Interesting. Okay. Wow. What might be the connection? A big one, maybe? Okay, now look at this. This is the MEDS's that he takes in the movie. And you see the name Donald. And you see 88. It's very prominent. You notice it's like much bigger, actually, than the 7 and the 24 that are before it. It's like they really wanted you to see that. It's really popping out there. So, okay. Well, as I was looking into this movie, it's like, again, the rabbit trail. It's not a mistake that there's a rabbit in this movie, and a dark one, because, boy, oh boy, you start finding some interesting connections. So, you've got Donnie, who's the lead character in the middle, and then you got Donnie on the right side, and then you have, to the left side, look what you have. The BOMB again. Exploding. And 8 and 8. What could all the connections of this be? One can only wonder until you start to ponder, and then you start to wonder. You wonder, and then you wander. And then I found this picture. So these are just images I'm finding. I'm like, okay. I'm not looking for these. They're just popping up. So I find this. And we've got an eclipse over Donnie's shoulder with the rabbit. And he's grinning like, what might this have to do with the eclipse coming up? Why an eclipse? Okay, then I see this one. And I'm like, okay, Donnie, Trump, Darko, make time travel great again. And I'm like, what? So there's a weird connection between all three of these folks. You got Donnie, and then you got Donald, and then you got Back to the Future time travel. Like, the movie Donnie Darko is not about time travel, at least not as far as I'm aware, but maybe it is. Maybe I missed something there. But I don't think so, as far as I'm aware. But somehow they're all connected. When I found this channel, they connected it too. They say 88, I'll show you this, 88, time traveler, TRUMP, time traveler, and then Donnie Dark. And they have a lot, and they show something from Back to the Future here. They show something with Donnie Dark, and then they show this guy as a traveler over on the side across his face. Is he the time traveler? I was going to do a video at one time. Who knows if I'll ever get to do it, but I had it kind of all mapped out, and I just got on other things, but this was like months ago. But on the connection between TRUMP and Nero, I believe it was, or somebody in the past, and just how much the similarity, how much they look alike. When you look at their, the sculptures and so forth, it's like, wow, is this a clone that we're seeing? Is it a time traveler? What's going on here? What are they implying by all this? Don't know. Now, going back to the Future, so we're not really leaving Back to the Future, I guess, because I have a lot of connections here to Back to the Future. But going back to Back to the Future, remember, it said the Assembly of Christ, right? And underneath it said Reverend John CRUMP. Now, what a strange name to pick. I looked up that name. I didn't find anybody in particular from 1985 that maybe that connected to. I'm like, why would they pick that name? Sounds like a strange name. Well, Mr. T is a mystery, right? Is he good? Is he bad? Is he ugly? We don't really know, do we? But one thing we do know, or at least what they tell us, is that his name is Donald John TRUMP. Now, we know his original name is not TRUMP, it's actually Drumpf. So are they making a little joke here by calling this guy, this Reverend John with a C, Rump? Is there a joke? Is there a little inside thing that they're doing here? And then Assembly of the Christ, is he the one who's going to assemble the Christians to make them think, because there's a lot of Christians that are buying into him like he's the modern Messiah, and including the JEWSs, they think of him that way as well. So is there some connection there? I mean, it's same middle name. The last name is remarkably similar. I find that a little odd and strange, don't you? I also thought this was interesting. When I looked up the meaning of the word, you don't know the meaning of the word. It means a loud thudding sound. Now remember what they said. If you don't like loud sounds, make sure you turn off your phone and maybe hide it away, cover it with some stuff so it won't receive a signal. But if you don't like loud sounds, it says a loud thudding sound, especially one made by an explow of the ding of the BOMB. What? So really, both sides of Marty McFly's journey involved a BOMB. You had the ATOMIC kid, and then on the other side, you have John BOMB. Wow. Very interesting. What are the odds of this? Okay, let's keep going. A couple more thoughts on this. Now, this man here can often be seen when he's speaking, making the 666 symbol. Now, again, I grew up calling it the OK sign, so I'm sure you could, to the pure, all things are pure, right? But nevertheless, he uses this symbol quite a bit. I would almost argue he might use it every time he speaks, or at least often. Because there are many images of him doing it, and he does it a lot of times with both hands. And if you see here in this image, he's kind of putting it up to his eyes, and he's doing both hands. Now, you could say it's 666, which certainly that's one way of looking at it, and we also know that people put it over their eyes to show that they're part of the club, so to speak. A lot of celebrities do that. Not a good club, the Darko club. But the Rabbit Club. But you could also look at it as the first one is a 6, and then when you add the two additional ones, that's 8. So 6 plus 2 is 8, just like it comes out on the 26th. So the first one is a 6, and then you have the two other fingers, that makes 8. So in other words, what he's doing right now is 88, or 88. So that's something to consider as well, as we saw Donald 88 in the movie, Donnie of the Darko. If you look at his name and you put it in gematria, well, would you be surprised to find out that it actually equals 88, 88, and that maybe that's why he keeps doing this symbol? Wow. That kind of knocks your sock. That's a sock. That's sock worthy right there. When you say, let them fly, let the socks fly, woohoo! That's sock worthy, I would say. Wow, that's intriguing to say the least. Very, very intriguing. And when I put RUMP too, I think it was like 89. It was like one off or something. Now here, this is interesting too. Jesus in gematria in the original Greek that's in the Bible. So if you read in the original Greek, it's Iesus, and his number is also 88, as we see here. 88. It's also 444, and as we see here, it's also in the original Greek letters. Now that's in English, but in the Greek letters of Iesus, it's 888. So it's both 88 and 888. So it's like we've got the devil doing his thing, and we got Jesus doing his. And on one side, you got the BOMB. On the other side, you have the assembly of Christ. You know, Christ assembling his saints. 88 on both sides. And 8 and 8 mirror each other. There's a mirror. There's a chiasmus going on here. Even 888, you've got 2 8s on each side and an 8 in the middle. What does it mean? What does it mean? Is this pointing to something? Is this something we need to understand better? Now, you probably remember this famous phrase that Donnie Darko said. Could this be the calm before the storm? Right? Remember that famous phrase that he said very cryptically, and people didn't know what he meant by it. And he said it twice. What did you say? What did you say? They asked. I don't know. Maybe this represents the CALM before the STORM. Well, if you put that phrase in, it also equals 88. Something to consider. Now, recently, well, I don't know how recently this was. This was back in 2020. But he was selling a baseball on his own organization's website. It says it right here. He sold this baseball on his organization's website for $88. That's kind of an odd price to choose for a baseball. I mean, why would you charge $88? Is there a deeper meaning to this 88? So now people thought, they tried to turn this, because they're trying to turn anything he does into something horrible. And we don't know, guys. We don't know what side this guy's really working for. There's such a thing as called controlled opposition. It means basically you get somebody who's on your team, but you get him to play for the other side and to get everybody to follow him. That way, when the shoe drops, he can turn everybody to the dark side of the force, so to speak. So we don't really know which way he's swinging the bat, so to speak, but at least in that regard. But they thought it could mean HH, because H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. So they thought it could be short for something, something standing for initials of a man with a funny mustache from the second WAR or something along those lines. As you see, actually just to show you that there, as you can see here, it's the 8th letter. Just want to see that's the 8th letter of the alphabet. So then on 8/8, he also made this threat. This was now August 8th, going back to the Lion's Gate, August 8th. He made a threat of fire and fury. And he does that in this video here where he's going to release fire and fury. So are we to expect fire and fury on 8/8? Is that what's being implied? Something to consider. Now, I did think about the Matrix with this. Because, well, the Matrix is kind of similar because the Matrix goes to another dimension, so to speak. It goes outside of the, he's in a Matrix and he kind of breaks free and he goes to another place. So I was wondering, well, is there any 88 connections here? Didn't find as many, but I did think it is interesting they happened to gross $288 million for that movie. And their rating on Rotten Tomatoes is 88%. So I thought that was kind of intriguing. Couple more thoughts here. Now, this is, you may recognize this, you may not. If you've seen the Lego movie, or if you play with Legos, this is the company for the OIL. I don't know if I need to spell that one, but it's octan. Oct means 8, as we know, and tan also means 8. So this company name basically is 88 because it's oct, like as in 8, as we already looked at the beginning of the video. Oct means 8, and tan means 8. So that's kind of intriguing. You've got kind of that yin and yang thing going again. So kind of like we have with Buckaroo Banzai. So that's kind of interesting also. And then there's, of course, and of course, you see this every time you go to the pump, right? You see 88 and you see octan underneath. Now we add an E for octane, but it's right there. It's right there at your gas pump every time you go. And Mr. President Business, I believe his name is, he's holding the octan mug there from that Lego movie. And I looked at President Business just for fun. And it doesn't say 88, but it did say 919. And I thought that was interesting because if you turn that over, it's 616. And 616 is another version of 666 that people often talk about. Now, in closing, I want to talk a little bit about Jesus. Does that sound good? I hope you found that very interesting. I didn't expect to find that much related to the Back to the Future. And believe me, there's a lot more, actually, that I didn't even get to cover. But wow. So I encourage you to go check out more of that for yourself. But I'll kind of close out with this one relating to the eclipse that is about to happen here on the 14th. And Carla actually helped me with this. But there are 3 eclipses that are happening over the U.S. There's the big one that happened in 2017. Now, before I say that, okay, so Jesus, I guess I should say what was on the screen here. Jesus is the Aleph Tav. And Jesus in the Bible says he's the Alpha and the Omega, or the Aleph Tav. In other words, he's the beginning and the end, Well, the beginning and the end of the Hebrew alphabet, which really is Aleph Bet, because that's where we get the term alphabet. The first letter is Aleph, and the last letter is Tav. The Tav is the cross, and then the first letter Aleph is, I believe, it's the bull or the like the lamb, like he's being slaughtered. He's a sacrificial bull. I think it's a bull, not a lamb, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, he's both. He's both he's a sacrifice. He's the atonement sacrifice, which I believe is the bull, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong about that. But I know there's the two scapegoats. There's the scapegoat, and then there's the other goat that's sacrificed. I feel like there's a bull there in there somewhere. Anyway, and then there's the cross. So Jesus says, I'm the Alpha, the Omega. I'm the Aleph and the Tav. I'm the beginning and the end. So it's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Well, if we take a look, and there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. 22 times 4 is 88. So that's kind of interesting too. It's divisible there. But if we look at this map, we see both the Aleph and the Tav. Now, on the 27th of August, it's a little hard to read, but the top line here is August 21st, 2017. The bottom line is the one that's about to happen on the 14th of October. And then the one that goes across to make the A, so to speak, is the one that happens in April coming up. So you kind of get this A going across. But you could argue you have both the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. So because you've got here the Aleph, right? That's the A. A is for Aleph. And then you've got the Tav, which is, if you just take that side of it, you have both represented in the one, or in the three eclipses that take place. Now it's interesting, Carla had another thing about there's like 4 eclipses that go around Jerusalem, which is really interesting as well. But you kind of wonder like what's in this little area here. Now we know that this eclipse that's happening on the 14th goes through Corpus Christi, or the body of Christ, and that happens at noon. And it kind of connects with Amos, and Carla brought this up too, in Amos 8:12, where it talks about going from sea to sea, right? So from this sea up here, which is the ocean, down to the Gulf, and from north to east. If you look at Amos 8:12, that's your homework. You got to go read the Bible now. Amos 8:12, that's what I should do. Just give you scriptures, and it forces you to go look it up. Because then you'll read more. It's kind of like get in the store. I just want to get you in the store, and then you'll start buying other things. So you'll come in the Bible, and you'll just start reading other things. So 8:12. That's interesting. So it's Amos 8. So there's kind of an 8 there. Wonder what Amos equals. Is it an 8:8? Ooh, that's more homework for you. Come tell me what you find out. Kind of intrigued. And then 12, of course. 12. So Amos 8:12. You have this scripture that says that it'll travel from sea to sea. Now it says in basically every version of the Bible, it says, and I thought I did have this open actually, but it says people or they. But when you look at the actual Hebrew for it, there's no people or no they. It's just moving from sea to sea and north to east. And so that's what this eclipse is going to do. It's going to go from one sea, the ocean over here, to this Gulf down here, and it's going to go from north to east. The one on the bottom, or the one that doesn't have a red line on it right now. Let's put it that way. The one coming up on October 14th, 2021. So could that be a fulfillment of Amos 8? And it talks about the sun going down at noon, right? And it's going down, and it literally lands over the body of Christ at noon in Texas, Corpus Christi. So that's intriguing. The assembly of Christ at the body of Christ, the body of Christ, assembly of Christ at noon on the 14th. Good time to have chicken. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy that, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. I know we went later than we usually do, but I had to get it out tonight. Otherwise, I might not ever get to see it. So thank you so much for your prayers and support of this ministry as well. We really do need it. Your regular support is what allows us to do this. And if you haven't ever been able to support us, maybe now is a good time. You can find links in the description. And that will continue to help us keep going here, because we would love to continue this ministry for you. Please also, if you could, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and share these videos, because our videos don't seem to show up a lot in search results. So if you could share them with other people so they can learn about this channel, because people every day go, oh, I never heard about your channel, even though we've been here for years. So that would be great as well. But I want to thank you for hanging out with me. And thanks for watching. Wow, a good number of you hanging out tonight. That's awesome. I'm going to be in the after video chat. If you click the first link in the description right here, it'll take you to the after video chat. And we can talk more about any of these things or other things that are on your mind. And it's just fun to come to the fellowship where we do Bible studies, prayer meetings, all kinds of things over there. You're missing out if you don't come. And of course, it's free. So come on over and join us. Also, if you would, oh wait, that's not it. I don't know where I'm going now. Oh, that's a video I did. But if you, Mikael Ministries is the other video, other place, and Mikael Music. I have a couple channels. Mikael Ministries is where we just do kind of straight up Bible study. And then I'll be here in the after video chat in this room right here. It's called the after video chat. Just when you come in, swipe to the right and you'll see a bunch of rooms over here, and just click on after video chat. And I might even catch you in the welcome room and invite you over. Just look for a link there too. And guys, Jesus is coming back. Yeah, did you hear about, you know about that? Yeah, Jesus is coming back. And he wants us to be ready when he comes, because he's going to come when we don't expect him to come, at an hour and a day we don't expect. So we want to be ready. And ready when Jesus comes. Oh, yeah. So now's the time, guys. Now's the time to repent, turn away from your sinful life, and start a new life with Christ. Why would you keep going back to that old life? You know, is that really satisfying you? I don't think so. I don't think it's really doing what it should, right? So it's time to die to that old life. Time to repent and turn to God so your sins can be wiped out, that times of refreshing may come from the Lord, and that he may send the Christ who's been appointed for you. He's waiting to send him because you're not ready yet. What's up with that? You know, I see a lot of people say, I'm ready. I'm like, well, only God knows if we're ready. You know, we might be ready to leave the world. I'm ready for that, yeah. But in terms of whether I'm ready to meet my Maker, only God can make that judgment call. We want to be ready. That's the goal. But we want to continue to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. We got to be humble before the Lord, and he will lift us up in due time. Amen. So guys, I hope this was helpful to you tonight. I hope it was encouraging. I hope you had fun and your socks were knocked off a bit. And if you want to come over to the fellowship, I would love to talk to you and continue our relationship beyond this platform, because there's only so far we can go with videos. But over there, we get a lot deeper in one another's lives. Good, bad, and ugly, but mostly good. Mostly good. We're pretty friendly and welcoming, and we have a good time. So hope to see you there. Guys, I'm loving you. I hope to see you in heaven, man. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Woohoo! 10-4, good buddy. Oh, I forgot to bring that one up too. 10-4, good buddy. I forget who, was that Oriana that mentioned that? Somebody mentioned that, but 10-4, good buddy. Good 10-4 kind of be like, 10-4 is kind of like a we're ready to go kind of thing. Like 10-4, we're doing it. So whatever's going to happen, we pray the Lord takes us. We pray God makes it good. Whatever it is, it's going to be good as long as we're with God. Amen? Amen, guys. I love you. I'm wishing you all the best and all the blessed. And see you in heaven.